Hello, everybody. Welcome to our third in this series of Seeds of the Infinite webinars. SOTI, S-O-T-I. I'm told by my wife that word means something in the Finnish language, something like "I went to war." Okay, I'm happy with that because it's been a bit of a struggle to work out this approach to divine identity, our own identity, to change the conception of our own human identity in everyday life. I mean, it's one thing to have the theory, and I think we all do have a pretty good theory about oneness. Our work in the ageless wisdom is constantly confronting us with that particular concept. But to live, to use the preposition in English, to live in the one, absorbed into the one. You see, all of those are actually positional words and somewhat divisive words, and even more importantly, to live as the one is a far more difficult process, and it represents for us an ongoing quest which will deepen during every moment. If there are such things as moments, it will deepen during every moment of our pilgrimage, not just as a human being, an apparent human being, but it will deepen all through the many changes of expression that we will pass through during this entire universe, because our expression in identity will surely change. You know, we're told that the paths of higher evolution stand before the human being, and he may become what a ray, a solar angel, a planetary logos, a solar logos, and on and on and on it goes. Not just the individual human being, but the human being in group formation, just like it takes perhaps some 49 solar angels or 49 groups of solar angels to become eventually a planetary logos. Very interesting idea. Well, we're going to pass through many changes of apparent identity, and yet, according to the ancient Vedantins, who fed with their thought Brahmanism, and which fed Buddhism, and which fed the ageless wisdom, there is no change whatsoever in our real identity all through this time. I'm just going to, it is very early here in the morning, but probably earlier still for some of you, speaking in relative terms. And I just realized I've committed a very great sin. I forgot to invite my wife to the webinar. Now, that's not going to be good. So I'm going to just send her that little invitation so that if she wants to wake up at the very early hour, she can do that and join us. Well, Okay, now we are beginning with the Tibetan's material on this. Actually, he was very cautious about how he uh, went about dealing with this subject. His work on the monad, and whatever that really means, he did say, well, it's not the greatest word. Just the way he said that isolated unity was not the most wonderful word, but it was the best he could find, and the word monad, too, he had to use perforce. He didn't develop a great deal of his thought on the monad because he felt perhaps that it was not going to be entirely practical for the kinds of students such as we are. And maybe in his third installment of the teaching, which will be given after 2025, he will develop more of the first aspect of divinity. I have a feeling that the work of HPB, Madame Blavatsky, was largely on the third ray, even though she's a first ray soul. It was a very uh, detailed and historical type of approach, especially in the Secret Doctrine and Isis Unveiled, and we know that the third ray is in many ways the keeper of the records. You know, it has everything to do with recording history accurately. When the Tibetan began to work through Alice Bailey, the second ray approach was used, and there was much more given on the understanding of ourselves as souls, and given for soul culture and how to develop soul infusion, integration with the soul, soul infusion, and learning how to live as a soul in service in this world. And maybe in our next presentation, the third installment of this great teaching, following 2025 and following, there will be presented more that is actually on the monad. Here and there are marvelous definitions of what it means to have monadic awareness and what the monad really is. And that's really, when you look at it, that's what we're trying to establish when we work with isolated unity, when we work with the great theme of identification, which can be pursued along any ray line, but particularly along the lines of the first, second, and third ray. Soul fusion, the techniques of fusion with and as the soul, operate along three techniques: isolated unity, inclusive reason, and presented attributes. And every one of us eventually will have to develop all three of those abilities or perspectives, even though we may emphasize one particularly of them. The first ray souls will emphasize the isolated unity, second ray souls the inclusive reason, and third ray souls the presented attributes, and souls on the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh ray will use one or other of those three methods. The fourth and sixth ray souls inclusive reason. The fifth ray souls will probably use isolated unity, and in my opinion at least, the seventh ray souls will use presented attributes, because I think no one can present attributes in such perfect form as the seventh ray souls. So, but beyond this, these techniques of fusion will lie a certain ability to enter into the triad and begin to identify as the triad, and then finally to enter into the monad and identify as the monad. And we all begin with this great process of identification, which the Tibetan tells us is realization, esoteric experience, and absorption into the whole. That's the definition that he gave for identification. It's realization, which means you suddenly see something new to you. You hadn't seen it before. You hadn't registered it before. There it was all the time, but suddenly it's yours. You actually do see it. Realization, esoteric experience, because it will take deep meditation to go into these states, and we will have to be working on planes which are higher than the ones we usually work on, and then absorption into the whole. And that's what maybe our focus is going to be, mostly on that. Now, what I'm going to propose for tonight's work, well, at least or this early morning's work here, and I feel sorry for the people in England and in Central Europe. It's even earlier for them, but okay. The Tibetan said, if you can not, the Buddha said, if you can stay awake for 48 hours, you can accomplish anything. So, but what did he do during those 48 hours? His his manner of awakeness, the supremely awakened one, the Buddha, was certainly different than what would happen to us if we tried to force ourselves to stay awake for 48 hours. Well, I guess we all have our individual Bodhi tree somewhere down the line, and we will, through profound meditation, enter into these higher states. So the first process, I'm going to I've put together a little meditation, and that's basically what I will be doing. I will be putting together various meditations. Last time when we met, 1 week ago, I offered a kind of meditation on the 8 stanzas of an ancient Atlantean chant, which was used at the time of the third initiation, he said, with great effectiveness. And it was chanted on certain notes which had a powerful effect. All of that has been lost, he said, and the rhythm has been lost, the rhythm of those ancient words, but still the meaning has been preserved. And the climax of the whole thing becomes basically, I am the one, I, God. I am the one, I, God. I am the form in which all forms are merged. I am the soul in which all souls are fused. I am the life, and in that life all little lives remain. So that's the climax of that great Atlantean chant. And today I'm going to go into a meditation which may help us enter into the unity. I'll tell you what, I have a thought, everybody. If you have not put yourself on self-mute, please do that, because otherwise we will get some distracting sounds that may come in. So just put yourself on self-mute, and then when you want to speak later, then you can unmute yourself, okay? All right, friends, so the meditation. And this will take a little while. And what I want to say about these things is that just talking about this stuff is not going to do the job. There's so many things that we can say theoretically, and they are maybe important to say. But what we're looking for is realization. That's the very first step, as he said. To achieve identification, it's almost an atmic state of consciousness that we have to achieve. On the 5th level of the atmic plane, 5th counting from excuse me, pardon me, maybe a little water will help here. On the 5th level of the atmic plane, counting from above to below, is this factor we call realization. And I'm going to find an image here. Our friend in the work, Keith Bailey, put this together, made a composite of these charts. And you see here on the atmic plane, this is where realization is found in this kind of map, either on the 3rd level from below or the 5th level from above. So first there must be realization. And, it's not something that can really be forced, but it is something that we can prepare for. We can set up the conditions under which it may occur, and those conditions are especially meditation. So all of our work, whether these webinars occur every week or every 2 weeks, or maybe sometimes every month, will always begin with essentially with meditation. And so let's do that. There are here, maybe, 33 of us, I guess. And that's a goodly number and a very significant number relating to the life of the initiate Jesus and to the fulfillment of illumination in the Masonic system, and it is a master number of achievement, and also would represent some sort of relationship to the third degree, at which illumination of a kind does come. It's not going to be the illumination that the Buddha experienced. He was experiencing the sixth initiation, and he was touching the cosmic mental plane, as far as I can understand. He received a cosmic touch. The Christ is more the cosmic astral plane. And that touch made all things one for the Buddha. Well, we're looking for a dim, a dim reflection of that possibility. So, okay, friends, let's go into the meditative process here together. And we are on all the three major areas of the world where our workers are found. And that is the Americas, Europe, and the Austral Asia, Australia, New Zealand grouping. There may be some people from other places, but okay. That particular triangle, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, and the Americas, North and South America, Mexico, Canada, etc., the United States. That's our triangle. So as we reach out to each other, we do not think of ourselves as personalities at all. We may have a personality vehicle, okay, but actually we are something else. So we will begin with this Raja Yoga method of abstraction. And we all certainly recognize that we have the physical vehicle, which is being calmed and made quiescent. And we use the old, it's in a way from Brahmanism or from the Upanishads. Neti, neti, it's Sanskrit. I am not that. Not this, not that. So we have the physical vehicle, but we are, for practical purposes, not that. Eventually we reclaim everything in the universe and out of the universe as ourselves, but not that. And our emotional and sentient feeling states, attraction and repulsion, desire and non-desire, not that. It's our instrument, but we are not that. And the lower mind filled with thoughts, thought forms. We withdraw inwardly. And all of that collection of responses in the mind, lower mind. We are not that. Not that either. Really, you know where this is going eventually. We are no thing at all, but step by step. So we are the soul in incarnation. That's what we're told. We have to experience that. We are consciousness, being consciousness in incarnation, immersed in some of the lower levels of prakriti, or matter, in the dense physical vehicle of the planetary logos, and even when we enter our causal body, even if imaginatively, in the dense physical vehicle of the solar logos as well. So we imagine that we are entering the egoic lotus. We have been taught about this, our causal body, our temple of Solomon, temple of solar man. We enter together on the plane of higher mind, this vehicle, and we are at least imaginatively surrounded by these energies. The energies of soul light, which brings us illumination eventually in the personality. Soul love, which will bring us the great renunciation at the fourth degree eventually. Soul sacrificial will. All of these will lead to the destruction of our causal body one day. And that's how we relate to each other at first. Not as human beings so much as souls. The heart center of the monad. It is our truer vehicle. Truer than the personality. But there is a part of the egoic lotus which is essentially indestructible. And it is called the central fire. We sometimes call it the jewel in the lotus. It is an extension of the monad. We are all monads in extension. We are all pure being immersed in self-objectification. The whole universe is a self-objectification. So we can imaginatively enter that central fire, and we will, this meditation at least, we will stay imaginatively in this jewel in the lotus, unless you're a fourth degree initiate, or just about so, that central diamond, that sevenfold jewel is not revealed. But we will imagine that we can enter the central fire, and that will be centralized soul identity. And from there, really touch each other on the soul plane. So we are as if within, each one of us, within the jewel in the lotus, within the central, extended, monadic identity found at the very heart of our causal body, the heart of the jewel in the lotus. Let's take a few moments to centralize yourself, or your sense of identity at least, in that way. This is not perhaps the way we normally go through our day, but if we did, we would have a whole different sense of our identity and the identity of others. So we're in the very heart of the lotus, the central fire, which is as much of the fire of pure being as we can grasp within the soul nature. We are in the central fire, and now we will use some imaginative work. We will, as it were, look out upon the world and its many people and many things, according to your own imagination, and feel the connectedness, feel the unity, just through your mind's eye. Maybe see the cities in which people live, the many kingdoms of nature that are on this planet, mineral, vegetable, animal, higher kingdoms of souls, planetary lives, all of this is part of our planet. And try to feel in your heart, which is connected to the heart of the lotus, try to feel the unity. As we might say, try to isolate in your consciousness the unity. Try to isolate the unity. And realize that though there is much dissonance on the outer planes of our planetary life, no one and nothing escapes this unity. Wherever you look, animal, vegetable, mineral, the various kingdoms, all the human beings, that sense of connectedness cannot be escaped. You are what you call yourself and others. We're all related to this unity. We all are inherent in this unity. It is inescapable wherever you go, whatever you do. If you've achieved the unity, you carry it with you, as it were, at all times and wherever and whenever. So there may be many qualities in the world, many different types of human beings, many different types of interaction. None of this violates the unity. Despite all multiplicity, there is this unity. So take your place, as it were, within this unity and extend your feeling of identity into the unity. Normally we might identify, I am the personality, I am the soul, I am this, I am that. But try to get I can only use the word feeling in a way, this sentient touch. Try to get this feeling that your identity is found wherever the unity is found, that you are, as it were, pervasive, pervading all people, all kingdoms of nature, all things. When the Christ says, I am the light of the world, the Buddha is said to have said that also. Think of it. That's identification as light, all-pervasive light. So something very subtle, identifying as the unity. So even more than the person you identify yourself as being, with a nama rupa, a name and a form, even more than that, even more than all you thought you have been, you are. You are this unity. And that, of course, dematerializes your identity because you are not some object. You are not some concrete perception. And as you try to do this, to become this all-pervasive unity, I am the soul in which all souls are fused, try to activate your heart center between your shoulder blades. Try to feel the unity, especially in your heart center. Whatever you see, whatever you register, whatever form comes up in your imagination, it's all really embraced by your heart center. So you are seeing with the eyes of the heart. The unity is revealed through the heart. So practice that as you see now others who may be close to you, or whatever being or existence or whatever object. See with the eyes of the heart. It's as if you carry the whole world in your heart. And that no one and nothing escapes from your heart, which is really the one heart. So in a strange way, whatever you register is somehow within you, within your heart. Whether a stone, a plant, any animal, any human being and beyond, the heart knows the unity. there is no real objectivity. Objects are actual but not real, though you have to deal practically, of course, but whatever you see, whatever you touch, it is in the heart, in the unity, and not out there. There's nothing out there. Every planet, our sun, every star, every galaxy, and beyond, they're not out there. They're in the unity which is in your heart, which is in the one heart. So you are holding every perception you might have. Whether of things near or things far, they are not different from you. They are not outside the all-embracing unity. This is, well, can we call it a new you? It's not. It's the only you that ever exists, of course. But it may be new to our thought. It is the intuitive you from the Buddhic plane. Just reread your Glamour a World problem, the first few pages, and you'll get the idea. You carry with you carry with the you thought you were, you carry this new intuitive you in the unity, as the unity, and this is important, this new embracing sense of identity, this new unity, this new you, is as much everything and everyone you see as it is the you thought you were. You thought you were a you in isolation, an I in isolation, a human being, a soul, even some people think of an isolated monad. It's not true. But all of that you thought you were, well, you are as much everything else and everyone else as the you thought you were. So ponder on that for a moment. In other words, you share identity with everything you register, everything you sense, you see, you perceive, you think about. The identity in the unity is the same. See someone close to you in your mind's eye, but see them in the unity of the heart. See any object, and see it in the unity of the heart. The perennial experience, it's called, the perennial philosophy, that old wonderful book by Aldous Huxley discussing the mystic experience of the ages. It's really the identificatory experience of the ages. Even an insect in God, in the One, is worth more than, let us say, the perception of a holy person outside the One. Even a fly in God will reveal the truth, whereas objectivity will not. We are part of an immense subjectivity, an infinite subjectivity in which objectivity is a special state of consciousness. So never depart, never leave the subjectivity, or you couldn't if you wanted to, but never lose it from the consciousness you have. There is a presence. There are many presences, but they're all one presence. And we practice the presence of the One. Call it whatever you want. You don't want to live a moment of your apparently individual life outside this presence. And this presence ever intensifies until it is the presence that is the universal logos, the one ray of the absolute. So it's not like as a human being we just get it, that's it. It's capable of infinite intensification. The realization of such a thing would destroy us immediately, destroy the objectivity we think we are, but gradually, gradually, we re-become in consciousness the infinitessence, the infinitessence, the essence. But first we must isolate the unity, practice it in the face of every condition, not to lose it, which is so easy to do, and fall back into ordinary objectivity, but let us practice. So now we will close this reflection with the sounding of the great invocation. I'm sure you all know it, but just in case, I will bring it up and try to sound this invocation as if from within the unity which you not only perceive but which you are becoming or have become or are. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. So do see if you can stay in the sense of the presence, in the sense of this unity which you have begun to isolate. See if you can stay in that. We'll have a little discussion here. Um, I have two networks going at the same time, and I hope that the network I'm now using has allowed audibility. There is a little problem. Sometimes one or other of the networks will close off, and I find I'm talking to myself. But then again, I'm always talking to myself, am I not? I have a friend, and or at least one, and we talk to each other in a strange way. I don't say, how are you? I say, how am I? How am I? And he says, I'm fine. How am I? And we extend this idea of the I on all its many different levels to all of the personal pronouns, so that it becomes the all-inclusive identity, the I, and we practice that language. It gets a little tricky at times, but before long, I realize that I'm only talking to myself. It's kind of what you might call a divine solipsism. Well, you know, solipsism is considered in philosophy to be a fallacy uh, by means of which you think you're the only one in the world. But there is a much higher correspondence to that, excuse me, as one realizes, as I realize, that there's only one being, and that is the great I, devoid of all qualities, and yet possessing infinite qualities. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to open up the floor in just a minute. Some of you have endured. You've managed to stick with it. You know, I know this new language is not going to be necessarily agreeable to everyone. You know, why bother with it? But I want to introduce every once in a while a few concepts, because we're going to develop a language here. Now, I call this the language of radical infinitism. And I have a certain way of writing things down, and maybe some of you will wish to become familiar with it. Now, I'm calling this identity on the emanative stream. Every one of us is really an extension of the ray of the Absolute. In fact, we are the ray of the Absolute. In fact, even more, once you begin to realize that the boundless immutable principle is indivisible, we become the entirety of the ray of the Absolute. And that almost seems illogical. You know, how can the part become the whole? It's very easy, because there are no parts. You know, there are no parts. Even and the great Maya, the Mahamaya, the great illusion, is that there are parts. But there's the only one thing, as the Hermes Trismegistus told us. There's the only one thing. And all apparent things are modifications of the only one thing. So there are no real parts. There are only apparent parts in the Mahamaya, in the great illusion. Now, you know, how do we define the term the great illusion? The great illusion is usually considered to be something unreal, and that we will wake up from it one day and will realize what is real and that we've been involved in illusion. And that is true to a certain extent. But from the perspective of the ancient Brahmins, the whole universe is the great illusion. It's the Mahamaya. And the only way to wake up from it is for the Mahapralaya to end, for the universe to end, as it were, periodically, and then be absorbed into that which is not the Mahamaya, that which is not the great illusion. We just call it that. Thou art that. So anyway, just very briefly, this terminology that I use for the word I, and I'll introduce you to that as we go along, is what I call I along the emanative stream. Now, the first thing should really be a complete blank. You cannot put it in form. So, even my first method of describing it is not accurate. Well, nothing can be accurate because you cannot thing reality. Well, to think something is to thing it. If you think, you thing it, so you can't do that to the unbounded one. And yet all we've got is just our thoughts and our words, and we have to work with what we have. So it would be, like Manly Hall says, just blank. It would be just a dark space. The unknown darkness, which is the absolutely infinite light. But to us, it would be no way to represent it. The next thing I do is to just represent a blank space between two quotation marks. And by that, I mean my I-ness, the only way I can represent my I-ness, your I-ness, the I-ness, in its pure state when there is no universe manifested. Now, in the secret doctrine, the law of periodicity is the second fundamental of the secret doctrine. So, periodically, there appears a universe, but there is not always a universe. There is the be-ness, out of which the universe arises. The old question, how can something come out of nothing? And that's a really profound question, and something can't come out of nothing, but something can come out of no thing, if you know what I mean. Something can emerge from no thing. So anyway, this top of the line I, as I call it, is actually what I do, you see, is I've set up my auto correct, so if I write 3 8s, 8, 8, 8, it turns out to be I. So that's the ultimate I when there is no universe. I'd have to have some way of describing it. But when being descends to manifest, as DK tells us it does, in those 6 trumpeted words on page 285 of Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 2, that's one of the places he really talks about being. Being descends to manifest. Being and time and form agree, being and time do not agree. So when being descends to manifest and produces this self-objectification called a universe, I represent it by the figure 8, which is a kind of infinity, right side up. The normal infinity is like so, you've seen this. If I somehow show you what the normal infinity looks like, you'll know what it is. That's it. That's the normal infinity. But when I talk about being descending into self-objectification, because the whole thing is a reflection, the whole universe is a reflection of what we essentially are. Then I use the right side up 8, and it shows, in a way, the circle of being descending down into the circle of self-objectification. It's really the image of the Antakarana, um, as I mentioned last time. Then the next type of I-ness is more our enlarged sort of soul I-ness. You know, we have a more expansive being. We apply the planet Jupiter. You know, oh, I'm more than just the personality. I'm a soul. Oh, I'm a triad. Oh, you're a planet. You're a star. But all of that is just a limited, circumscribed I. No matter how big you think you are as an I, you're circumscribed. You're still what I call this is a word I use, you're a finitude. Actually, really, you're an infinitude. But okay, in universe, you're a finitude. And that is the I you think you are, and it's always an illusion. Then comes, obviously, the I of the personality. That's the I we normally say. And then this little I is the I of the vehicles, because so many of us misidentify. Say, I am angry, oh, I'm tired, you know. We're identifying with these little I's, with our elemental vehicles. We're identifying with the instrument, not the synthesized instrument, but just the instrument itself. And that really is the little I, and it has nothing to do with what the I is. So what I've done is created, for my own amusement, or maybe illumination, emanative streams of identity. A certain language, which is an emanative stream of identity, and here it is. I as I as I as I as I. And you see how it's all really one I. You can't not escape being the absolute. You cannot escape being nothing, and you cannot escape being everything. Well, as I say, I have to be careful. You cannot escape being no thing, and you cannot escape being everything. Now, these are radical thoughts, and they are what the Tibetan would call so trite and unrealized platitude. Well, it's all one, 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 one. It's a platitude, meaning it's a great truth which is mindlessly spoken. Everybody knows that. It's all one, right? No, hardly anybody knows that, at least human beings, because they're not into it. They don't realize it. Real eyes. They don't see with real eyes. They're not into it. They just say it. It's just from the throat center. It's from the mind. But the feeling of it, the intuition of it, the buddhi of it, the identification of it, missing. So to help show the descent of identity, I use things like I, the Absolute, as I, the Absolute, as the ray of the Absolute in universe, as I, special cases of expansive identity in universe, all the way down to the personality, as, and here's the personality, all the way down even to soul, the enlarging I, and then down to personality and down to the personality of vehicles. And you can reverse it and go the other direction. My personality as my soul, and as the larger identities, and finally as the ray of the Absolute in the universe, as finally the one and only I, which is out of universe and utterly persistent. There's never a time in all duration when what is symbolized by these two quotation marks is not. It always is. whether there's a universe or no universe. It always is. It, that, this nameless thing inside the quotation marks. So, what I'll do is we'll meditate all the time on different things. It's only one thing you can meditate on anyway. There's only one thing. But we'll meditate on different aspects, apparent aspects of the only one thing. And then I'll introduce some of this terminology. And right now, what I'm introducing, some of you know about it, of course, is the emanative stream by which the absolute I becomes the I in universe, becomes an ever-decreasing grouping of I's on a hierarchical configuration, becomes the personal I, becomes the tiny I. But it's all the same thing. And that's what we have to realize. If I'm a personality, the personality is the monad. The soul is the monad. The monad is the monad. And the monad that we think of ourselves as is the monad of the universal logos. And that monad of the universal logos is the ray of the absolute, which is the infinite essence, the nameless, the you can't name it. You can't name it. Okay, friends, so that's that for the moment. And before I go on just a little bit more, I'm going to ask if there are any questions or comments that you might like to make or might not like to make. I'll open up the floor to your thoughts or your questions. And remember, when you are speaking, which I is speaking? Which I is thinking? What is your level of identification? Now, we all have a default position. We fall back into the personality, and we're lucky if we can sustain our soul unification. So talking about, being life itself is a huge stretch and seems mystical, but it's not mystical in the sense of duality. It's occult, meaning that it works with the principle of identification and not with mysticism. I, the loving, yearning one, yearn for God, and then maybe I can become one with God, or at least God will relate to me. And, those are more the mystical kinds of thoughts. But what we're talking about is occult identification. That's what we're talking about. That's going to be a stretch for all of us, Well, we've been there, infinitudinous times. Just, I always say, when I've lost something, well, okay, I've lost universes forever. All my instrumentation as a universe have been destroyed forever. Infinite have been the destructions. So I guess I can stand to lose something in the realm of relativity. I try to see it that way. And it's not always necessary to go that far. Okay, so is there anybody that would like to say or question anything about this? And then, yeah, I open that up to you or any member of the staff. Some of our staff cannot raise their hand because, GoToWebinar is just set up that way. So I can't see their hands. But if you want to speak or say something, just let me know. And hopefully I'm not talking to myself. There's complete silence here. So, I hope this has been broadcast and recorded and that you hear me. But since I still see most of the people who signed on at first, I guess you're not signing on to nothing, or are you? All right. Is there anybody that would like to offer a thought? You are welcome to do so. or a question? I'm kind of checking, looking. You know, there we go. Okay, Nicholas, Nicholas. Now, let's unmute you. And wait a second. Oh, ho, ho. I've got to unmute you somehow here. Yeah, okay. You're free to go, Nicholas.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I do hear you, yes.
Nice. Hi, everybody. Um, Talking about the great illusion and the universe,
Hmm.
I started realizing that great universe, as is revealed to consciousness, is not exactly the same thing.
No.
So, what is the factor that is dispelling this illusion is presence,
Hmm.
and this the appearance of the presence is resolving the conflict, or not exactly the conflict, but
Hmm.
the problem of consciousness looking towards the universe.
Hmm.
And at the same moment, I felt, because I had this a suitable position, I felt that it is something that presence is felt through the whole of the body.
Hmm.
It is a sense that it looks like the hair of the cat when is in alarm, that
Hmm.
when the hair is stretched out,
Hmm.
it is something like this. And this came as a thought when you during meditation we were focused on the heart,
Hmm.
and I realized that the next step is that we can utilize the whole etheric the whole etheric the whole etheric body
Hmm.
in order to catch up what presence is,
Hmm.
or the whole set of the etheric centers,
Hmm. Hmm.
and probably we can test this one in some occasion.
Hmm. Good thoughts. Appreciate your thoughts. You know,
Okay.
nothing can escape it, and you cannot isolate one source only. But so many of us, let's say over the years, have been involved in the throat center or involved in the concrete mind, and the heart center is connected to the Buddhic plane. DK says it represents the Buddhic plane, at which point these intuitions begin to manifest themselves. The heart and the head center to the monadic plane, and you know, so basically this sense of presence does involve the etheric body, as you suggest, which reflects all of the cosmic ethers, you know, logoic, monadic, atmic, Buddhic. And so it's just going to become larger and larger, and like you say, every aspect of the instrument, including the soul nature, and eventually including the entire monadic temple, all of that will be involved in detecting, identifying as an ever more intense registration of this presence. But I do agree with you, it's not just one center, it's just one way of accessing the buddhi, which is the doorway to the sense of the presence. So I appreciate your comments. Thank you, Nicholas. From Greece, right? Is it not so?
Yeah, yes,
Yes,
from
okay. I'm
Greece.
very. You woke
Okay.
up early in the morning. Thank you.
Well, same time in Finland.
What is time anyway? What is time? Okay.
Well, it's about 7 o'clock now.
Now we're good.
6:30.
Now we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay,
Easy
thank you.
time.
Thank
Easy
you very
time.
much.
Bye bye.
Thank you, Nicholas. Okay, are there any other thoughts that you would, anybody would like to share? Any questions? You know, I just want to say one thing. You know, I talked about Neptune and I talked about Uranus. We need them both together. Neptune is perhaps the strongest planet in our particular second ray solar system because it has a second ray monad and it is a synthesizing planet, and it's the planet of the mystic. And Uranus is said to be the planet of the occultist, or you know, the truly occult mind. But what we want to do in our efforts is to unite those the powers of those two synthesizing planets, Uranus and Neptune, to understand in a sentient sense and to understand in an illumined sense what identification is. We need both approaches. We need the mystical approach, we need the occult approach, and they sort of combine together to make something even more embracing of reality. Okay, is there anybody else that would like? Okay, hold on. I saw a hand as I'm going down. Okay, hold on, Rose. I see you here. And go. You're on.
When you think about the term isolated unity,
Mm,
the thought isolation, it seems contradictory, but it's kind of like what Nicholas was saying. The isolated part is really the presence, because
that's right.
the presence is like the isolation is from all that is not. It's from the creation, it's from the form.
Mm.
So the isolated is the presence.
Yeah, that's exactly correct.
And when I think of that term, the image comes to mind of like almost like a black hole. If you could see how like a black hole, there is like nothing, but yet it is everything. It is absorbing everything. It's the life that's behind the manifestation,
Mm.
but not the manifestation.
Yeah, that's it. Sometimes in the secret doctrine they call it the utter darkness. And of course, the black holes that we're familiar with are related mostly to the etheric plane, but probably every plane has its own black holes. And in a sense, on these high subjectifications of the idea of black hole, the whole universe at the Mahapralaya would be absorbed into the universal black hole, and then we would enter the utter darkness, which is not utter darkness at all, but which is the most, well, we don't know until we're there, and we've been there forever, but it is the infinitudinous positivity. That's all I can call it. In other words, completely indescribable, but as Spinoza said, it is not negation. So for us, we say the black hole, and we can't penetrate it, but we know that the the absoluteness there resides in its purest form. So when I say isolate the unity, we're not isolated at all. We merge with everything in the presence when in a state of isolated unity. And DK basically has said as much. Let's just see here. Okay, introduction here. Here it is. Um, I just have to find this here. Here it is. Um, this condition has been described. As he says, it's not easy, for the neophytes, for us, let's call ourselves neophytes, be humble about it, for the majority of students who read this work. This condition has been described as, quote, the intensest reflection of the man, isolated in God, who is the negation of isolation, and is nevertheless the whole, which is set apart from other wholes. Now, you can see that would be a fantastic seed thought to ponder on, for a long time. When this state of awareness has been achieved, and Patanjali hints at it in the last book of the sutras, by the way, books which even the masters are said to read, books 3 and 4, the disciple becomes invincible upon the physical plane. That's a first-ray word, for he is completely unified and linked up with all aspects of himself in the greater whole of which he is a part. You see that language there? With all aspects of himself. It's not only his own energy system, but everything else is an aspect of himself as well. So he is completely unified, linked up with all aspects of himself in the greater whole, of which he is a part, is fusing all attributes, there's the word fusion, and is at one with the whole. Not simply subjectively and unconsciously, as are all human beings. It depends on how we determine the word subjective. Lots of meanings there, but not simply subjectively and unconsciously, as are all human beings, but in full waking, understanding awareness. So even though and I would just suggest, look in Esoteric Psychology 2, and in that section on the technique of fusion, I didn't write down the page number here, but I imagine it's in the 390s, somewhere in there, and just ponder on that. The intensest reflection of the man isolated in God, who is the negation of isolation and is nevertheless the whole, which is set apart from other wholes. Now, there are all kinds of wholenesses in our view of the universe. This is a whole, that is a whole, a W-H-O-L-E. But there is this one all-embracing whole. It's a mathematical issue. They call it the set of all sets, and they try to prove that it does or it doesn't exist. This one all-embracing wholeness, which contains all the other wholes, and not only contains them, we have to go farther than that, is them itself. In other words, the whole is in the part is in the whole, and more than that, there are no parts, and more than that, every apparent part is the whole entirely, entiretously. So, whatever word. So these realizations in the presence, by practicing the technique of the presence, these realizations are what we want to make more and more a part of our normal relative consciousness until we live not only in the wholeness, but eventually, higher beings and so forth, as the wholeness. We live as the wholeness. So we'll look at that, and I'll repeat this other thing about isolated unity, which I read last time. I thought it was very useful, something to keep in mind. But remember this, friends. We can talk about this till we're blue, or maybe indigo. Okay, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. But talking is not the thing, and thinking is not the thing. It is the realization of the reality that we are, and living forever in that realization. I am the life, and in that life all little lives remain. What a statement from the old Atlantean chant. Incredible. I am the life, and in that life all little lives remain. Now, these realizations, which to most of the world seem nonsensical, are the very thing we have to establish as incontrovertible within our consciousness. That has to be done, and that's what the whole process of initiation is about. And we're not going to do it in this life, and we're not going to do it in the next life, in terms of relative cycles. These are the realizations of the Master, and even he would say he's just beginning. The true isolated unity, there's a glimmer at the 3rd degree, okay? And at the 5th degree, someone knows what it's all about, and it's just the beginning. Okay, just the beginning, at least in this universe. Okay, thank you. Now, let's see. Sheldon. Okay. Go ahead, Sheldon. Unmute you. There you go.
Well, Michael, I just wanted to thank you for your comment almost ending the last session about the hearts, these various heart levels being the means by which we realize this. And I thought it was very helpful to me just thinking about Neptune and Uranus together. So to fully understand this, to get this, both those energy streams have to be working with us and through us, so we really can get it fully. So I just want to thank you for those comments. Yeah.
Thank you, Sheldon. In our particular solar system, Neptune is the most highly developed second ray planet. Its monadic ray is the second ray. If you go to Esoteric Psychology, Volume 1, um, well, I'll go there instead of just talking about it. It's Psychology Volume 1 around page 420. And here he tells you the story. Esoterically, and that means monadically, um, esoterically speaking, the planets which are the expression of the three major rays are Ray 1, Uranus, Ray 2, Neptune, Ray 3, Saturn. So in our particular solar system, the most highly developed second ray planet is Neptune. Now, uh, sometimes there's a hint given that, okay, Neptune doesn't really belong to our solar system. We don't know exactly what that means. Some kind of visitor. Some people have ideas about what that means. Um, but let's just say that for all practical purposes, that great, wonderfully blue planet Neptune is an effective member in our solar system. It does not conform to Bode's law. Maybe there are other methods of measuring the distances of the planets according to some formula, but Neptune does not conform to Bode's law, and the other planets do, so it gives a hint that maybe it has some other deeper connection with some kind of cosmic Christ figure. Okay, right now, the monadic ray of our solar system is the sort of a 4/2. The soul ray is 2, and the personality ray is 2. But that's not going to be the way it is in the next solar system, the sixth solar system, sixth and final in a sense, because the personality ray, this is my theory anyway, the personality ray will be the first ray. And this will allow our second ray solar logos to express in a far more willful manner. And then Uranus, the true planet of occultism, will be the major planet. Okay, now, right now, Uranus has to necessarily play second fiddle to Neptune in terms of the objectives that have to be achieved in our present solar system. But it won't be so next time, and then perhaps we'll have the true blending of Uranus and Neptune, because all of these entities, which are in a sense chakras of the solar logos, will reappear in the next solar system. But right now, just as disciples, we have to be the mystic and the occultist together, and studying Uranus and Neptune together is what will give us an idea of how that should be done. I have no wish and no intention to have us float off in some kind of mystical reverie and abandon the mind and abandon the understanding of the sentiency that we begin to feel as we enter the presence and realize that we are the presence. So I have no intention to make this a purely sentient experience. The occult mind has to accompany and explain what it is we are doing. And, later we'll get more into that maybe third ray aspect of things, and I will blend the third ray and the second ray. And hopefully this is considered to be a reasonable thing to do, because the Buddha is a third ray monad with a second ray soul. So, and that can be confirmed in a treatise on cosmic fire. He is one of those beings, along with 9 others, who can put in 3 separate appearances at the same time. Second ray monads can only put in 2, and the inference is that first ray monads can only put in 1, but the Buddha is one with 9 others, and only third ray monads can do that, put in 3 separate appearances at the same time, independent appearances. So there's a lot of occultism that lies behind what we are attempting to do sentiently. I mean, in other words, if we don't have the sentiency, the higher hypersentiency, you might say, then we just have a bunch of words. We just have a bunch of thoughts. It's just, it may be very rich in speculation, but so what? We need the sentiency along with it, the blend of Neptune and Uranus together. So, so Sheldon, thanks for pointing that out. Is there anybody that has any other statement or question? Now, I tell you what, don't worry about the language. On the monadic plane, you as a monad already know all this stuff, and you are all these things. It's just a question of conditioning the gathered prakriti from the previous solar system into such a condition that the registration can occur right here in the brain consciousness. So you say, oh, well, I'll never get there and this is beyond me. Well, which me are you talking about? It's not beyond you at all. You are the monad. You are the ray of the absolute. You are the one and only being. You know, and let me just say this, that we need to say these things in a way that is not inflated. It's so easy, you know, to get inflated about these things. Well, when Ramakrishna said, almost, I have to believe, with a twinkle in his eye, that I am less than the dust on your feet, it really hit me. You know, he was being so amusing. It wasn't a statement of profound, abject humility, although he had that tremendous sense of proportion which goes with humility. He was saying that the real I is the smallest of the small and the greatest of the great. So, you know, the dust, a little speck of dust on your foot is tiny in those days, let us say, you know. He would say, I'm less than an atom. I'm less than a bubble in the koilon. I'm less than the smallest ultimate particle event in cosmos. I am less than all that, and yet I include all that. So he was giving a great lesson there in saying that apparently very self-putting down statement. I am less than the dust on your feet. I am the absolutely infinite and the absolutely infinitesimal at the same time. And I'm going to get into the mathematics of that a little bit. I'm not a mathematician, but I've thought along these lines about what is the relation of, there are many infinitesimals, but what I call the absolute infinitesimal, or the ultimate negligibility. The ultimate negligibility. The smallest possible thing, I call it an ever-lessening. An ever-lessening. I'll write it out, you know. But, you know, the absolute infinitude and the ultimate ever-lessening, we are both of those simultaneously. Is there any other thought that you would like to offer here? So as I say, don't worry about the language. Do not worry about the language. You have within you what you need to gradually comprehend in such a way that the sun rises from dawn to full noon. And of course it sets again, and the midnight sun is the moment of initiation. So we are all the sun, and these thoughts will dawn on us and they will be real for us. Nice to see so many of you here. And Jeff, hey, okay. There you go. Okay, Jeff.
Having some trouble with sound here, Michael. Can you hear? Okay.
I hear you very well.
Because you're very weak. But
yes,
anyway.
yes, I am weak. Hold on. Let me just try something. And if I do something that knocks me off the air entirely, then I'll let you know when our next event occurs. Okay, let me try something. Because I'm just about yelling here, you know. So let's see. Connected? Okay. All right. I should be stronger now.
Not so much. No.
No.
I think it's maybe here.
Okay.
There seems to be a lot of problems with. Maybe it's related to the numbers on the webinar. I'm not so sure, but some seem louder than others.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
I was wanting to address this factor of identity.
Yep.
And, well, the mystery of identity, you know?
Yep.
And that in the formula that you've been discussing, this is one of the first places where we're introduced to this element. And when we look at that particular formula, we can take from it the various elements, one being space, the other time, and consciousness is mentioned, and the other factor of being, which contains the mystery of identity.
Yes.
Now, of course, the tangible ones that we deal with being space, obviously,
Mm.
and of time, the factor of consciousness, once again, we can relatively explain that to ourselves and how the factors of time and space work together to produce this factor of consciousness, that expands and can wrap it around itself bigger holes. But the mystery of identity seems to stand on its own, So some years ago I did some work on this and took on the formula sun, black, antikorana.
Yes.
And he suggests that we arrange this in a manner that we see fit.
Yes.
If
Yes.
you arrange that formula in this sequence of sun, antikorana, black,
Exactly.
the factor of space can be realized in the symbol of the sun. The factor of time is more related to the antikorana because it's the process of becoming.
Okay.
And if in some way we're successful, to my mind, in entering into the formula, we're presented with nothing. There's a no-thingness.
The no thing. Yep. Exactly.
The black.
Exactly. You can
Or
play with
blank.
it different ways, and we'll get into this later, Jeff. But I am of the opinion that time and space are the creations of consciousness. In other words, I don't look at them as existing independently. I believe that because there is being, there is consciousness, and because there is consciousness, there is both time and space. I'll try to, get into that. We kind of look oftentimes at space and time as if they are absolutes. And in terms of everything we can conceive, they're always there, Even with what we call the great breath, the factor of time is there, and the production of
Yes.
every universe necessitates space. But I do believe, and this is my kind of theory. Gosh, I'm almost yelling here into the phone, so I hope you can hear what I'm saying, because I realize
Yes.
that for some reason I'm not registering as loud, another loud American, right? I'm not registering as loud as I might be. But I believe my thought on this has led me to the conclusion that self-consciousness produces space and time. And I don't mean the self-consciousness of a little human being, or I mean the self-consciousness of a universal logos, the one at the top of the pyramid, and I even mean more than that. I mean the arising of consciousness in that. Nobody knows how that happens. I mean, because it's immutable and there's not supposed to be any change. But consciousness arises in that, and the consciousness that arises, since that's the only thing that is self-consciousness. And because of that self-consciousness, in that, those limited conditions of space and time also arise. I'll try to explain that in some manner that makes sense, but that's the idea that I'm working with. Not that they are absolutes at all, but they are, in a way, partial perceptions. And now
Sure.
I'm not talking about Blavatsky saying space is an entity, because when she says
No.
space, she means the absolute. So it just depends on how you use the word. But
Yeah.
our whole thing here is to try to overcome the illusion of the normally configured time and space. At the third degree, we have to do that, at least beginning to do that, and then it intensifies more and more. So um, that's our quest. We are, all of us, prisoners of time and space in the usual sense. Now we have to find a way for that no longer to be the case. There's this thing about the third ray monad. Decay, decay in Esoteric Psychology 2 gives us 7 monadic stanzas. We may not recognize that they are, but the blessed ones are monads, okay? So anyway, he says, all is illusion, O dweller in the shadows. All is illusion. So that's an amazing statement. All of what? He just says all. So we have to disabuse ourselves of this great illusion by finding our true identity, which, as you say, stands by itself. And I agree with you about rearranging this thing. I've tried to do it every which way, sun black antikarana, antikarana sun black, antikarana black sun, all the rest of it. They all mean something different. But I can understand how you related them to space, to time, and to the no thing. Anything else?
Yes, because
Yeah.
what we're trying here is to describe ourselves to ourselves. So the thing that's doing it, the process or the element or the function, is the process of identification. I mean, it seems an inappropriate word in many ways, but like he says, it's the best one we do have.
That's what we've got.
And I mean, what we're saying here ultimately, I mean, when Christ announced, I and my Father are one, ultimately this is what he is saying, isn't it?
Exactly. What will happen? Yeah.
I can only deal with this, and I mean, I don't have the audacity to be able to announce that, but I can say that God is not someone else.
Right. Okay. Look, I get it. And I think, Jeff, that things get more and more audacious as you go on. I mean, as we go on, because what I think is that eventually we start saying things and meaning them and realizing them that people would lock you up for. You know what I mean? They just say, well, the person's crazy. But if even the Christ says, I am the light of the world, what is he saying? The Buddha is saying, I am the light of the world. And Hermes Trismegistus says, I am the light of the world. What is their level of identification? See, they're not looking at that physical form or even anything that's gathered on the higher mental plane, whatever. They're out there or in there. They're in the light. They are as the light. So we have to learn to get beyond the normal form of identification. You look in the mirror, what you see is what you get. Okay, we've got to get so far beyond that as to be almost someone else looking with objectivity within the field of subjectivity on our instrument, and then we start finding that we are a pervasive something. And like he says in harmlessness is the life expression of the man who realizes himself to be everywhere. What a radical statement he is making there. How many of us realize ourselves to be everywhere? You could meditate on that for the rest of your life, So it's a whole change of identity we're into here. We're trying to pull this off while not losing our grounding right here in the world of relativity, because that relativity is forever. I remember that Shankara said the following thing: most mysterious is Maya and forever. So that really gave me a pause. Well, I say cyclically forever, but most mysterious is Maya and forever. We're not going to get out of this. We've never been out of it. We're always in the Maya cyclically. Only in the Maya we have to wake up to the fact that there is the cause of the Maya, the self-existent one, which we are. Okay, the formulas lead us right into that. So thanks, Jeff, for those thoughts. Appreciate that. Anybody else that wants to say anything? You're most welcome to. Let me just read this thing on isolated unity once again. I read it last time, but it's really. I hope that you can hear me. I'm having something peculiar going on with the system, and I couldn't be talking any louder than I am and remain civil. Okay, so I'm talking as loud as I can. Maybe. Oh, okay. Well, Leah says the sound is fine there. Okay. And someone asked, BB asks here, could it be that the monad stands to spirit as the body stands to matter? That's an interesting analogy. And In a way, you can say that the whole field of matter includes the body, and the whole field of spirit includes the monad. You know, the monad, BB, is not my monad or thy monad. It's only, one thing. So ultimately, I make an identification here. In a sense, we have the monad with its own vehicle on the higher, on the monadic plane, on some level of the monadic plane, and it seems like my monad. And I have a ray to my monad. But the real monad has no ray at all. The real monad is pure being. The heart of the monad, it is pure being. And the only thing that gives it a ray is its vehicles, the vehicles that it has accumulated around it because it's immersed in matter. So the true and real monad is not just a part of the spirit, but it is the spirit itself. And I'll go further than that. I want to say that the essence of the monad, the true monad, is the ray of the Absolute, which flashed forth into objectivity or self-objectification at the beginning of every universe. And I want to go further than that. I want to say that the true monad, even though it's way beyond, the true monad is the one and only, and I want to say the unbounded one and only. So when we say, who are we? Well, it goes back to the Vedanta. Thou art that. The Upanishads. Thou art that. The monad is spirit, is the ray of the Absolute, is the Absolute itself. And so in the isolated sense of the monad, saying I'm a monad on the third ray, on the second ray, you can say, yeah, the monad is to the spirit as body is to matter. You can say that. But let's take it further and realize the larger supra-universal identity. Supra-universal identity. We sometimes think the universe is the whole thing. It isn't. The universe, this is one of my crazier ideas, okay? But anyway, the universe is the absolute infinitesimal. The universe is only a point, and all points are the same. So the universe, let's just call it, is an infinitesimal when compared to the absoluteness. And so what are we? Well, we're a lot more than just the universe. And right away they say, well, the person's crazy, lost his balance, but just follow the thought. You see, if we follow the thought to where it logically leads, we will get into the realm of paradox. That will happen. Okay. Thank you, Bibi. Your question there, and I'm sorry I didn't pick it up earlier. Sometimes my question function doesn't work. Now, it looks like Esther has unanswered questions. Can you, Brett or Joe, can you tell me what Esther's question is? Because I can't make my question function work. And Frederick has a question too.
Yes. Esther says, I am hearing Michael just fine.
Oh, okay. All right, all right.
The only question that you might have missed is BB.
Stevie's?
BIBBI.
Okay, I just was answering BB's question, but now give me.
Okay, good.
Does she have another
Sorry,
question?
go ahead.
Because I've got two BBs here. I've got her BB is listed twice.
Yeah.
So I was just answering BB's question about the analogy that the monad is to spirit as body is to matter. And then I was extending the idea of the monad. And now, so Esther says she can hear fine, and that's good. Thank you, Esther. Now, Frederick Andres has a question or a comment.
Frederick says the sound is also great here. I don't think you have any more questions that are related to your
to the theme
topic.
Okay, friends.
I know. Gratitude.
Yes, thank you very much, Brett. I know I have a tendency to go on and on about this. What do they say? That's a 12-step group, or on and on. It's a recovery group, on and on. About Al-Anon. So this is on and on. It's for children, recovering children of Gemini parents, on and on. But anyway, I'm not a Gemini, but I've got enough in Gemini to help me go on and on. Um, so let me just read this last paragraph again, or the introductory paragraph on isolated unity. Uh, Now, I know, friend. Oh, wait a second. Oh, and Leah said that it's okay too. Okay, no more questions. Um, the terminology. I realize that the Tibetan speaks in a certain terminology. And he says, no one has evolved the language of the monad. And I'm not pretending. Okay. I'm just trying to make a stab at it. Okay. The language of the monad, who knows what he means. But whereas he is being very practical and sticking into remaining in the realm where most of us can understand, I have made an attempt to go into certain realms where it's hard for the understanding to follow, including my own. But that's the Aries attitude. I always want to push the envelope. So I'm evolving a language. The language will appeal to some and not to others. It's a third ray language within a second ray context. We cannot escape the second ray. It's the ray of our solar system, and every one of us is conditioned by that great synthetic indigo ray. Okay, but in order to clarify things as much as possible and to enter what I call exactitude of thought. Exactitude of thought. Now you might think that that belongs to the fifth ray, but Annie Besant says that exactitude of action belongs to the fifth ray and exactitude of thought belongs to the third ray. So I'm trying to use some of these third ray formulations, neologisms, new words, new perspectives, new angles, all for the purpose of welding us solidly into the unity, into the identity which we are. That's what I'm trying to do here over the course of these webinars. So the last thing I'll read here, just to keep this always in mind, which is very beautiful, because our time is, our illusory time is up. All right, so the last thing, isolated unity, is that stage of consciousness which sees the whole as one. I'll underline some of the important parts. I've read this over and over again, and I'm sure you have too, and it would be worth memorizing. Is that stage of consciousness which sees the whole as one and regards itself not theoretically, but as a realized fact, as identified with that whole. Now, I have discriminated between the words with and as. And although it is, what was the word you used, Jeff? Audacious, foolhardy. It may be foolhardy, audacious to use the word as here, but I do use it because I think it's ultimately true. Not only identified with that whole, but identified as that whole. It is a whole which is isolated in the consciousness of the man. So it's always there. It's like the note in Indian music. The pedal tone never stops, no matter what other tones are going there. It's the drone aspect of it. There's one fundamental tone that is always going, no matter how the other notes of music dance around it or issue from it. It is a whole which is isolated in the consciousness of man, and not the man himself who regards himself as isolated. This is absolutely important, So I think you get what that means. When you're strongly conditioned by the first ray and the fifth ray, you can enter a state of isolation where the Tibetan says you become untouchable. Well, that's not a good state. It's a psychopathology. But in a way, too, the crazy thing is, when you think about what's being isolated here, it is also untouchable. It is untouchable because there's nothing else, and you need at least two to have a touch. So if you got only one thing, there's nothing to touch it. So uh, this personal isolation is in great contrast to the to isolating the wholeness. The word isolated refers to that complete organized organism. Let's say it's whatever, the whole universe or a solar system or whatever, of which the man can feel and know himself to be a part. The word unity expresses his relationship to the whole. There's a oneness there in the word unity, uni, and he is that oneness, and that oneness is him. One for all for one as all as one. This is my version of the Three Musketeers. Okay, I just thought of that, but it's going to make sense to me. One as all, and all as, sorry, one. Oh, okay, I have a new slogan. All right. So, the word unity expresses his relationship to the whole. It will be apparent, therefore, that this whole is something progressively realized. Don't expect it in this life. When you're a master of the fifth degree, you will find yourself just beginning, really, in terms of what's possible. Okay. Uh, Progressively realized. For the bringing about of this progressed realization, the great expansions of consciousness called initiation have been temporarily arranged as a hastening or forcing process. It took place on Venus successfully. It's taking place on Earth now, hopefully successfully. This progression of realized, and this gets back to an earlier question, this progression of realized isolations in unity may begin with the disciples group, environment, or nation, and through right use of understanding will end by enabling him to isolate the divine scheme or living structure, the whole thing, and identify himself with it in an active and capable manner. And you know how many of us are having trouble just saying in any meaningful way, I am the group. That in itself is tough. I am I am I. Okay, I am the group. And actually feel that your identity, it's almost as if you're looking at the thing you thought was yourself, but that the group is a larger identity, which is really your identity. And on and on and on. You isolate the various wholes. Great patriots probably feel that when they identify with their nation, as their nation. One of our American patriots, he was caught and he was hanged, and his last words, I regret that I have only one life, but one life to give to my country. There must have been some kind of deep identification with the nation, the nascent nation that was coming to birth, and on it goes. So identity is the whole thing here, and not just talking about it, which we will do, but feeling it as well. Feeling it as well. So we'll hold on to this now. I'll tell you what, I'm going to offer the next meeting 1 week from now, but I may have to write you and say that it won't take place because I'm going to be out of town, and I'm going to do my best under circumstances to be in touch with you. So this will be a SOTI number 4, and it will be on the 29th of August, which will be in Virgo already. And so far until I notify differently, it will be at 2:15 a.m. GMT. Now, obviously, I'm going to slip all the time back into the relative language where we talk with each other all the time. Just relativity, we talk that way. But when trying to refine the ideas here, I'm going to use a special language. And maybe you will come up with your own special language, which makes things meaningful to you. Okay, that's going to be it now. I guess that just has to be it. Is there anybody on staff who wishes to say anything? Because obviously I couldn't see your hands. So if you do wish to say anything, you are most welcome to do so at this moment. Okay, is there anybody at all who wishes to say one short final thing? I always want to give people a chance. Um, we're developing. Look, frankly, friends, this is an approach to a subject. This is an initiatic subject. This subject is opening up as the revelation of initiation. We cannot expect of ourselves that we will have a full grasp of that which we are trying to realize. It's an atmic thing. And it being atmic, it does pertain to the consciousness of a master, where isolated unity really kicks in. Okay. So let us be patient with ourselves, gentle with ourselves, persistent. Let us not become discouraged. I'm talking to myself. Of course I'm talking to myself. Okay. Let us, let us not become discouraged in any respect as we move towards fuller and fuller realization. Nick, please go ahead. Yep.
Okay. I was thinking about ring no passes
Yep.
in compliance with isolated unity.
Yeah.
A ring no pass is something that is on the side of isolation, and at the same time there is happening something to the border of the ring no pass. Without a ring no pass cannot be formed, and this is the way, and consciousness has to do with this limitation within the ring no pass. So,
Yes.
well, I think it is something that is considering to examine in the near
Very
future.
worthwhile. We're gonna do that. In English we call it the
Okay.
ring pass knot, or I guess you're
Okay.
calling it ring no pass. It is to have a ring pass knot is to, I use the word, is to unitize a perception, a sense of oneself. Every ring pass knot is a finite thing, obviously, is Saturn. So whenever there is a ring pass knot and we need them, the whole universe is bounded. There's a ring pass knot to the universe. And we realize that everything contained in any ring pass knot is a unity and is an infinitesimal at the same time. I'll get into that. I'm not going to do it now, but I'll try to explain it. And there's only one thing, and we shouldn't even talk about it, that has no ring pass knot, and that is the unbounded self. The absolute has no ring pass knot. That's the first fundamental of the secret doctrine that tells us about the boundless, immutable principle, no ring pass knot. The universe itself and everything within the universe is bounded. And what we're doing at the edges of those ring pass knot is to wear away the pass knot so that it becomes larger and larger and larger and deeper and deeper and deeper. And we will examine this concept as you suggest. Thank you for the suggestion, Nick. Okay, yes. Thank you. Okay, friends, then that's going to be it for today, for tonight, for whatever it is for you. Some of you are up in the middle of the night here. I realize that. Thank you for doing that. Thank me. Thank I for doing that. I've got to get that guy with whom I have these conversations onto our webinars sometime. And he's a very good teacher, and some of you know him, but he's very creative, and we can all have one of those eye conversations. Okay, so we'll close with the mantra of the new group of world servers coming right down to earth. Let's see here. May the power of the one self. Now, well, am I having, oh, I see what the problem is. It's not in discipleship in the New Age. Okay, may the power of the one, there we go. Let's just do this together. You can say it out loud at home where you are, as long as you're on self-mute, and then we'll sound the Om. Om at the beginning, Om at the end, and then I'll send you, we'll send a copy of this. Brett is putting them on the Makara website, so you'll be able to access this. If you wish to re-listen or share it with your friends, you are welcome to do that. Okay. May the power of the one life pour through the group of all true servers. May the love of the one soul characterize the lives of all who seek to aid the great ones. May we fulfill our part in the one work through self-forgetfulness, harmlessness, and right speech. Okay, friends, farewell for now, and very nice to have you all here. Thank you, and maybe just unmute you so you can say goodbye if you wish. It'll be probably a horrible racket, but we'll see. Appreciate your presence. Haha, not bad, right? I appreciate your presence. Appreciate the presence.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you,
Bye.
Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you,
Thank
Leah.
you,
Thank
Michael.
you. Thank you all. I appreciate.
Thanks, everybody.
I appreciate being here with myself. It's a great experience. Okay. Farewell. Farewell.
Farewell.
Bye bye and bye bye and Walter. Yes, I'm trying to unmute you, but I can't unmute you. But I know you're here. Okay. All the best. Bye bye. See you in a week or so.